Every gardener has his or her own method of staking tomato plants and also an opinion on whether or not tomato plants need to be pruned. Staking provides many benefits to the plants, mainly in managing disease. It opens up the plants and allows air circulation to move through and dry the foliage, which reduces disease. It also picks those plants up off the ground, reducing contact with soil-borne diseases. Another method of managing disease is to use black plastic under the plants, and we'll look at that system a little bit later this season. Pruning can boost our yields by increasing the amount of light that infiltrates and hits all the leaves. So we're going to be exposing more of the foliage to full sun, which will also help with drying those leaves of water as well. There are several different training systems that we can use with our tomatoes, and the type that we use is going to depend on the type of tomato we're growing. Tomatoes can be divided into two main groups, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate tomatoes put on most of their fruit all at one time. They tend to be a little bit shorter vined and denser, and each branch ends in a little fruit cluster. They'll fruit all at once, and this is a variety that we use for canning. There are also the commercial varieties that allow for easier harvest on big farms. The indeterminate varieties are a little bit more common in the home garden, and these will continue to grow, flower, and fruit throughout the whole season. Now, when we're staking, we have three main methods: trellising, caging, and stake and weave. We could use stake and weave in cages with our determinate variety tomatoes, and we can use all three of these with our indeterminate. So let's start with looking at a trellis system. For the trellis, we have a series of posts throughout the garden, and actually you could have just about one every 20 feet if you would like, and string a wire across the top of that. From that wire, we're going to run a string to every plant, and we tie the string around the base of the plant, and we tie it up at the top of the wire, and then we wrap our plant as it grows around that string. And one of the things we want to do with pruning, we're going to prune trellis style tomatoes more heavily than any other training system. And when we prune, what we want to do is remove these lowest leaves, because you can see here there's a little bit of damage and there might be some disease starting. These come in contact with the soil, and they're going to be most likely to have some diseases. We also want to pinch some of the lateral shoots. One of the reasons that we prune on this is to reduce competition between our fruiting branches and the branches lower down. So we're reducing the amount of just vegetative growth and concentrating more energy on fruit production. So we want to leave the upmost cluster of fruit and then 2 to 3 more clusters below that. So as you look down the stem, you want to start pinching some of these side shoots. And here's a nice one that needs removal. We want to remove them when they're about 4 inches, so this is ideal. And the best way is to just pinch it between your finger and your thumb, and I use my nails a little bit, and just pinch it off. It's better to not use pruners or a knife to do this, because you can transmit disease from one plant to the other. It's also a good idea to wash your hands, and if you are using equipment, make sure to sterilize your equipment between plants to help reduce some of your disease transmission. Well, this plant has 1 main shoot per plant, but we can also do a trellis system using 2 shoots per plant. And again, we do that by tying our string to the base of the plant, as I did here, and then we're going to take that string and tie it up over our top wire. And you want it to be fairly tight. I didn't quite get that tight enough, because you want it to hold the weight of the tomato as it grows. Okay, and then we're going to do another string around the base of the second shoot, and I try to spread them out a little bit on our wire. We'll get this one a little tighter. And this is where we'll train our second shoot up the plant. And again, we're going to wrap each shoot around the string And I started a little late on these. It's better to start when the plants are a little bit smaller. And then come back in and look for these little side branches. And we're gonna pinch those out all the way up until we reach the top 3 or 4 clusters. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this one too. It's a little bigger. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the other shoot. Wrapping it around the string and then coming in, see here, and pinching out these lower clusters. I'm gonna come back in and remove these lower leaves as well. Pinch those out, again, to reduce the disease from soil-borne agents. Okay, and as our plants grow throughout the season, we're going to continue to wrap them around these strings and train them upward. We're going to have some nice fruits produced, and we can remove some of those lower branches periodically throughout the season. Now, we've used some colorful stakes in our tomato bed a few years, and these basically you want to treat like a trellis system. We're going to train a single branch up these, and we do this by just wrapping our plant into the grooves of the trellis. And as it grows, we'll just continue wrapping it. And again, we want to come in and pinch out the lower growth. This one's a little high up, so I'll leave it, but go ahead and pinch out some of these lower shoots to open it up, and then remove the lower foliage to prevent some disease. The stake and weave system of support is used commonly with our determinate variety tomatoes, but we can also use it with indeterminate varieties. And this consists of a series of posts, and we space those posts after every other plant. So we'll have 2 plants, a post, 2 plants, and another post. And then we're going to do the weave part. So we have our stakes. I've used metal stakes here. You can also use wooden stakes, but you want to make sure they're 1 by 1 inch in diameter. They need to be pretty strong to hold the weight of those plants when they're set with fruit. Okay, so now we're ready for the weave part of stake and weave. And this consists of weaving string between the posts and plants. And we start by tying off 6 to 8 inches above the ground, and you could weave around the plant so that the string passes on one side of the first plant and the opposite side of the second. And then when I come to a post, I'm going to wrap it around that post just for a little extra strength. And then I'll come back around my next plant. And I'm trying to keep it level with the ground. This is just going to hold the plants up, provide some support as they grow. When I get to my post, I'm going to wrap it around. When you get to the end, wrap it around and then come back down on the other side. So I'm going to come out on the outside of this plant, and then I'll cross over and just continue to weave down the row, making sure to get all these plants secured. And each time you come to a post, it's a good idea to wrap it around. That'll just give a little extra support. Yeah, coming on the outside. And of course, when we get to the end, we're just going to want to tie it off back around our main post. So give yourself plenty of string, cut it, and tie it. And I like to wrap it to help hold it. We're going to want to repeat this throughout the season as our plants grow. And we're going to put another line in that is about 6 to 8 inches above our first. And then we're going to continue that every 6 inches throughout this season. So I'm going to go ahead and tie on another string to start this second row. And then we're going to do the same thing, just weaving our string along both sides of the plant. Okay, when you get to the end, again, we're going to tie that off. And with this system, I'm just going to wrap it for now so I can move on. With this system, we're not going to prune quite as heavily as with our trellis, but what we do want is to maintain this foliage here and also keep some separation between plants. Now these are fairly small, but as they grow, if they start to grow together, we're going to want to prune them out a little bit. The other thing we want to do is, again, look at the base and pinch back these leaves that are going to be dragging into the soil. that are starting to look like maybe they have some disease. Anytime you see disease signs on your foliage, you want to go ahead and pinch that out. So we'll watch these as they grow and just maintain the plant in a small area. Make sure we don't have shoots coming out all over the place. Those we'll want to prune back a little bit. Let's take a look at our third system for staking our plants, and that's the cage. Caging requires a little bit less work than the other systems of support. It has some of the same benefits, but perhaps not as many. We might have a little bit lower fruit production and certainly later fruit production because we don't have that light penetration into the canopy. We also don't have as open of a canopy, so we won't have as good of air circulation. But we will have the plants lifted up off the ground, and that's a great benefit to reduce soil-borne diseases. And it also makes our plants a little bit more manageable so they're not just sprawling throughout the garden. Now we want to make sure that as the plant grows that we just direct the foliage up inside of our trellis, just simply lift it up. And this will be important. I can see this one's hanging out. It's about ready to stay in, but it keeps falling out. So when it gets a little taller, I'll want to come back and make sure it's inside my cage. With this cage system, we don't really need to prune very much. We will want to come in again and just pinch off these lowest leaves that come in contact with the soil to reduce soil-borne diseases. Now it's important to decide on the type of training system you want to use before you set out your plants. And the reason for that is we could space our plants differently depending on the type of system we use. Caged plants are going to take up more room than those that are grown on a trellis. So we could plant these a little bit closer together. Remember to check your plants throughout the season, continue to train them to the support system, and also prune them as needed.